Russian military is inside of the Ukraine right now. Now, I know that they have a base there, and I know that they are in some way partners. However, I am not taking sides on this. I'm simply going to state the facts as I see them, and more importantly, connect the dots, because that's what the mainstream media never does. They never connect the dots. They simply read off their teleprompters. Now, stay with me for a second. I'm going to get into a few points. The U.S. wants to put sanctions, or at least talking of sanctions, on Russia. Now, Russia is not something like Iran, where sanctions are much more crippling, but they could be damaging. I'm not saying that. In the event, or in the previous events in Iran, this allowed the inflation rate to hit a high of 36% for a very long period of time, actually, and that did really hurt the citizens there, not the government whatsoever. And I also like to mention that Obama said that the world is, quote unquote, largely united against Russia's military action. And one country is not in that, and I'll get into that in a moment. Russia has put its soldiers on the ground and violated basic principles. That's what they're saying here. Obama's saying that, and I find it funny coming from Obama specifically, with all the drone strikes and with all the illegal military actions that they have caused in other countries around the world. So I find it very funny. It is true, in fact, but I find it funny coming from Obama specifically. Let's go on quickly. The Kremlin issues ultimatums to Ukrainian forces, and that they're saying that this is an act of aggression, and they're calling on Putin to de-escalate. This is pretty obvious, and I'll get into one line that I would like to note. I would like to indicate Crimea is territory of Ukraine despite the presence of Russian military. And this is the new Ukrainian Prime Minister saying that. And that is exactly what I said. People were practically crucifying me for saying that the Russian putting their military inside of the Ukraine, like they're doing right now, is a threat to their sovereignty. And they were saying, no, that is not the case. They have a presence there, and it is okay. They just want to protect their presence. But that's not what this is. This is Russia saying, this is our land, this is our territory. That's what this is. They're protecting it. Yes, I agree. However, they're doing it forcefully. That's the problem, and the sovereignty is lost. You may think this is all fine and dandy. However, the sovereignty, probably the most important thing a nation does have, it's sovereignty. And this is being destroyed right now in the Ukraine. Now, what's going to happen is they're going to show the IMF and the EU and the US as the saving grace. However, when something like a supranational entity like the UN, for example, comes in and says, we'll save you, have no fear, that's an act of destruction of the sovereignty as well. It should be the Ukrainians who decide what happens, not a supranational entity, not another country, and not some appointed technocrat like they did in Italy, just as an example. Let me go on. Russia and China, quote unquote, in agreement over Ukraine. Russia and China are big partners. I've covered it before in my book, for example, where I said that Russia and China are doing deals in their own currencies. No longer do they use the US dollar. And essentially what happened at that point, when they shook hands on that deal, they said, we do not trust the US. We want to do business together. Let's have a partnership that is long and lasting, and let's do it away from the US dollar. And that is big news that China is saying that they are in agreement. And I believe I read also that China is in agreement militarily as well. Let me go on quickly. They said that it is a violation of international law what they're doing. And again, I find it very funny because the US, the EU, they have violated, and Canada, not to mention, have violated international law. What about when they just went out and bombed the poor Libyans, just lynching everyone? and having, this international treaty that they develop, that they collect, they get into a room together and they say, okay, that gives us the authority to bomb whoever and whenever we want. That's not how this works. So what I want to note from all of this is that this is not Russia and China versus the US and the EU. And of course, on the surface level it is. But more specifically, this is the globalist elite, the New World Order, if you want to call them that, against humanity, against sovereignty, against freedom and liberty. That's what this is. Because they're going to provide a solution here. Whatever comes down with this, there's going to be a solution that is predetermined already. Before this tension even happened, I'm sure that the solution was already there. And that is ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. And I'm sure you've heard that slogan before. That's the Freemasons, and that's all these secret societies. That's the deeper level here, and they are going to provide a solution. And that solution is a loss of sovereignty, like they did in Greece. They sold off islands just because of the bankers and their greed, and the people lose out. Every single time the people lose out, they're going to lose out on their pensions. They're going to lose out like they did in Cyprus on their actual money from their bank accounts, their savings. They're going to lose out like they did in Portugal when they took part of their pensions. They're going to lose like the military in the US when they took their pensions. The people will always lose. Why? Because we've allowed this. They've set up this scheme. I'm trying to help people out. I'm trying to do what I can. And the number one thing you can do is take your money out of this banking system and defund these criminal bankers. They're going to provide that solution. They're going to do the order out of chaos. Whatever comes of this, I'm not too sure. However, it's not good for the people of the Ukraine. They're going to continue this system. They're going to have the IMF riot in every country around the world. I assure you, when things break down in poor cities and poor counties around the US, I assure you they're going to do a similar thing to what they're doing right now in the Ukraine. Beware. I'm warning you now. Please get onto the Money GPS Insiders if you haven't already. There's a lot of support on there, and I appreciate that. If you want to get first dibs when you email me directly, if you need help, if you want to get one-on-one consultations, whatever it is that you need, the best place to get it is on the Money GPS Insiders. That's my first priority. And I just want to say, if you want to get on, my email or anything, the Insiders is the place to go. That's themoneygps.com. Scroll down to the bottom and fill in your email address. And of course, if you're watching this video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.